Hello, I'm Sweetie Biscuit, and this is my submission for Descent to Hotshot Any for AGDQ 2017. Before I begin, I'd just like to note that will be using a SourcePort D2X Rebirth, and this comes with the capability to play at pretty much any resolution. So I can play this game in letterbox or widescreen or whatever resolution is necessary. I'm assuming widescreen is probably desired, although the original game I don't believe had capabilities to play in widescreen and ran in a letterbox resolution by default. So I can run widescreen if it's more convenient for the stream layout, or if more kind of like authentic, true to the original game experience is preferred, I can run it in letterbox resolution instead. That said, let's go ahead and kick this off. So yeah, as I mentioned, this is Hotshot difficulty, which means this is it's run on the middle difficulty. And yeah, run's gonna start right here. So right off the bat, you're gonna see a lot of kind of weird angular movement. I'm not really flying straight forward, and that's because, like many old school shooters, this game didn't really have a firm max player speed set. So if you combine multiple vectors of movement, you can go much faster than you normally will. So, for instance, if you point kind of at a diagonal and move like forward, sideways, and down, like forward, left, and down, you can go much faster. Also worth noting, in that first level, you probably noticed that I committed suicide. I just blew myself up against the lava fall after getting the right key. Dying will respawn you at the start of the level after you drop all of your items, but you do retain any key cards you pick up. So the red door is just a little bit closer to the start than it is to the key pickup, so I do a death warp in order to reach the exit level more quickly. Anyway, as far as the game itself is concerned, yeah, Descent 2 is came out about a year after the first game. For those familiar with the first, not the second, there's a lot of differences. The movement engine's a little bit more refined. AI is a little bit better about leading shots and, you know, just generally aiming and evading fire from you. In addition, there's a whole new slew of weapons. The number of primary and secondary weapons is doubled. And there's also a number of accessories. One that I picked up earlier in this level and went a little way out of my way for is the Afterburner, which provides a temporary speed boost at the cost of energy. It does take some time to recharge though, so I'm not going to be using it the entire time, but I will be using it at times when I can get that little burst of speed. I also went out of my way in that level to pick up a secret Helix Cannon. The Helix Cannon is normally meant to be first obtained later on in level 5. The Helix Cannon has the highest DPS out of any primary weapon in the game, but it comes at the cost of a lot of energy. So in this level in particular, I'm going to have to be really careful about choosing my fights, not engaging enemies that I don't need to, because I need to make sure I have enough energy to make it through the entire level. As I mentioned though, yeah, as an old school shooter, you're going to see a lot of kind of elements similar to like games like Doom. See the same color-coded key scheme going on, blue, yellow, red. Draws a lot from those games. In fact, for those of you at home, I recommend checking out the old TV commercials for the first game, because they're kind of humorous in that they pretty much are shamelessly saying, yeah, we're like a Doom, but we're better. It's very 90s and kind of entertaining. Anyway, going out of my way here to pick up the quad laser upgrade. That's going to add 2 projectiles onto my basic laser weapon. Not particularly important right now, but will be later in order to exploit a glitch to do some sequence breaks. I am going to use it a little bit as well here, because the lasers are also much better at shooting through grates and force fields, which I need to be able to do to take out these Lugards for a little bit of safety. Lugards are pretty dangerous enemies. They have lots of health, and they shoot homing missiles that, you know, obviously are a little bit hard to dodge, and also deal a lot of damage. So, usually if I see a Lugard, I'm going to be aiming to take it out. So I picked up some guided missiles earlier, and that's going to actually let me do a little bit of sequence breaking here. Um, gonna throw a guided missile into this room and use it to break a switch that will unlock some doors ahead of schedule. What this is going to do is going to let me enter the boss arena without collecting a single key, and skip the majority of this level. The first boss, which you'll be seeing very shortly here, is pretty easy because of the Helix Cannon. He does not really have much health. Doesn't have the health to really stand up to sustained Helix Cannon usage. So he'll just go down in a few seconds here. Since I didn't collect any keys, I can't access the normal level exit, but that's just fine because there's a secret level portal right up here, which in a pinch can also be used as an exit. I do have to do a quick little transition through here to another, to one of the exit portals in the secret level to advance, but overall it's definitely worth skipping all the keys. So at this point I am on the second world, Corzon. It is a water-themed world. Water physics are a little interesting, but ultimately don't have much impact. Running into water will cause your ship to kind of shake a little bit, but won't do any damage or anything. And any weapons that hit water that have explosive damage will have their splash damage greatly reduced. Worth noting that I just had a short encounter there with the thief bot. Thief bots appear in most levels in the game, and as the name suggests, they are capable of stealing items from your ship. In this case, I was lucky in that he only stole a single concussion missile, which is not at all important. Concussion missiles are the most basic form of secondary weapon and are replenished up to 5 at the start of every level. So losing one is no big deal at all. Also worth noting, I just picked up the Gauze Cannon, which is the weapon you'll probably be seeing more of than the Helix Cannon, actually. Despite not quite having the same amount of damage, it is extremely accurate. The shots move extremely quickly, and it also uses physical ammunition instead of energy, which allows me to save my energy for afterburner usage and for bursting out higher amounts of damage with the Helix Cannon on high health targets like reactors and Lugards. Also, since it doesn't use energy, it does not trigger the plasma counter from the Diamond Claws, which are very annoying enemies otherwise, but that avoids a potential nasty consequence of fighting them. So I'm gonna go on my way here to grab a cloaking device. Cloaking devices are more or less invisibility, near complete invisibility, but there are a few things that will give the enemies hints as to your position. Afterburning can give your position away. Crashing into walls or shooting can also give your position away, although only temporarily. Also going out of my way right there, I picked up the energy to shield converter, which is a little bit of a safety tool, barely costs any time to pick up. It's going to let me convert any excess energy past 100 points into shields at a 2 energy to 1 shield ratio. So whenever I have some extra energy, it's a way to get a little bit of extra safety. This level's pretty short, already coming into the reactor room right here, and Helix Cannon, as always, still makes really short work of it. The next level is a little bit interesting, though, in that it has a bit of an intended sequence break. There's a hidden switch that I'll be activating, and that'll let me skip the majority of the level. Alright, here I accidentally stopped my timer, so a little bit of a pause here to fix that. And right off on my way again. So there's the Thief Bot. The Thief Bot is generally pretty predictable in his movement. You can, as long as you're following the same rough route through the level, he'll generally also follow the same route through the level. So I generally know when he has a chance to attempt to steal. But even then, he can still sometimes catch me by surprise. So that's Sega Saturn logo-ish thing that I picked up back there is the invulnerability power-up. It does exactly what the name suggests. It's going to let me handle this key fetch rather easily. Although invulnerability does not, as you can see, render you immune to the flash effect of the flash missiles. So I have to have pretty good map awareness to know where I am even when I'm getting blinded by flash missiles, which is, pretty nasty inconvenience. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, skipping the keys makes this level pretty short, and is going to bring me up to the boss level of Quarton, which, actually, just like this level, has another bit of an intended sequence break. There's a secret switch right at the beginning of the level that's going to let me skip the blue and yellow keys once again. Something else that I go for here is a trigger skip. The red key has a trap on it that causes walls to spawn in the direction you want to go, but if you just barely touch the red key, you won't quite hit the trigger and the wall will stay down. That is just what happened there. I avoided an extra trip over to the side room to lower the walls. Grab a cloaking device there and lower the force fields towards the exit, and that makes this boss very easy. The high damage of Helix Cannon combined with the fact that you can't really aim properly due to the cloaking device makes him a really easy target. And with that, that's the end of Corzon, and we're on to the third world, Brim, which is a lava-themed world. And as you may be able to guess, it is one of the most dangerous worlds in the game. Lava is a pretty dangerous, persistent hazard, and sometimes you can't avoid it. Some levels force you to fly through lava falls that will damage your ship a little bit. Not only does touching lava deal damage to you, but any weapons, even weapons that don't normally have splash damage, will deal splash damage if they hit lava. So even if you're damaging enemy fire directly, even if you're dodging enemy fire directly, and it's hitting lava nearby, you're still going to be taking damage. So you have to be really careful about your positioning in these lava levels. Now the first level relies on a bit of RNG. There are some cloaked enemies that have the potential to drop cloaking devices. I got pretty average luck here. Most common outcome, the first one I run into dropped a cloaking device for me, and the second one did not. You can have pretty much any combination of outcomes there. Obviously more cloaking devices is better, but that's the most common outcome, and it's good enough to get through the level fairly reliably. I'm doing a little bit of extra, converting off my extra energy to get a little extra shield, just to make this end run a little bit safer. Also going to be grabbing some Mercury missiles here. Mercury missiles are one of the more powerful secondary weapon types in the game. They move extremely fast and do a lot of damage. Unlike a lot of other missile types, they have no homing capabilities, so you have to aim well with them. Getting a little bit dicey on this escape sequence, taking a lot of damage, but managed to reach the exit no problem. And I'm on to the second level of Brim. You can see me dropping a safety save here because this is where things get really scary. Lava Falls Extraction Center is extremely dangerous, especially early on in the level, because of the sheer volume of enemies you have to bypass. And as you can see right here, I actually get boxed in here and kill myself with my own Gauss cannon, which is really unfortunate, but thankfully it's not too far off. That's only going to be like a 20-30 second time loss to get back there. Can certainly do worse than that. Running into the Thief bot there, and again, he only takes a single concussion missile, although granted I just respawned, it did not have much gear for him to steal anyway, so that's pretty much all he could steal. Getting all my gear back, when you die you do drop almost all your equipment. There are limits to how much of each type of item you can drop, but that's generally only concerned for like high-level equipment like Earthshaker missiles. So all the keys in this level are held by bots, and they move extremely quickly. As you can see, there are these little yellow things that are darting around. And so I make utilization of a cloaking device and also attacking the one that's holding the key outside of its aggro range to make sure it doesn't run away from me and cause a whole lot of trouble and time loss. Also grab an invulnerability power-up to make running around here a little bit easier, which runs out right about here. Also, this level introduces these enemies right here, the E-Bandits, which are very dangerous melee-type enemy. They don't really deal much shield damage, but they will drain your energy on hit. And I need that to deal, high burst damage with the Helix Cannon and also to afterburn. So losing energy like that is extremely inconvenient. So yeah, thankfully, the only keybot that's really got a good chance of running away from me is the yellow one. The blue and the red ones are both confined to pretty small rooms and are pretty easy to take out without having issues. Playing a bit cautious here, grabbing that extra cloaking device and taking a bit of a shortcut back towards the reactor room. So yeah, most of the dangerous parts of this level are pretty much done now. Although, that said, I am going to be still taking a bit of a safety precautions. There's some extra shield pickups available up ahead, and I'll be going for those for sure. Take a lot of damage there, but that's just fine. And yeah, here's the reactor room. Pretty quick kill, and that is the hardest level in the run. Out of the way, pretty much. Just gotta make a quick sprint back to the exit, and we're on to Quarton Shaft. Second to last level in Brim Spark. This level utilizes that glitch I was talking about with quad lasers. The 2 extra projectiles added by the quad laser upgrade actually spawn slightly ahead of the ship, which allows you to get them to spawn on the other side of doors. And I use it right there to shoot through a door and the switch to unlock it that's immediately on the other side. That allows me to skip the blue key for this level and shaves off about 20 to 30 seconds. So yeah, again, quad lasers are very effective at shooting through grates, much better than the Helix cannon, which kind of shoots a big rotating linear spray. The shots tend to get hung up on bars and grates and force fields. So, while it's mainly about the gauze cannon and the Helix cannon, lasers do get occasional use for situations like that. So grabbing the red key here, got a bit of a backtrack up ahead. As much as I'd like to death warp, death warping again does make you drop all of your items, and so if I were to death warp, I would need to take a death right at the start of the level in the first place in order to store all of my gear where I can pick it up again later. Doing that takes a bit of time and ultimately ends up making the death warp not really worth it for this level. But I will be death warping on the next level, which is the last level of Brim Spark and the end of the most dangerous segment of the run. And I'll actually talk about that a bit because, yeah, as I mentioned, I will be suiciding right at the start of the level in order to just store my gear for later pickup. But it comes with an additional cost in this particular level because this level also happens to be the largest level in the game with the most enemies and the most item pickups and all that sort of stuff. And this game has a limitation to how many objects it can process in a map at once. So you'll be seeing some problems when it comes to me firing my weapons, in that the shots don't always reliably spawn. So this makes fighting enemies pretty difficult, if it weren't already going to be difficult because of my very basic weaponry. But yeah, and even these basic lasers, they're basic lasers that can barely function on top of that. So most of this level is going to pretty much be done pacifist, with very minimal confrontation. I'm just going to be looking to scoot around most enemies. On the plus side, most enemies also experience the same problems with firing weapons, so I'm not going to be taking a lot of incoming fire. But, of course, any melee type enemies like E-Bandits and Diamond Claws don't really care about the lack of ability to fire weapons, because they just ram you. So those types of enemies are incredibly dangerous in this state, and I have to be very careful, make sure I really power through any narrow choke points like the ones back there, so that I don't get completely walled off by an E-Bandit or Diamond Claw. So coming up on the yellow key here, hopefully the Mega Missile I picked up earlier spawns and kills me, which does. Sometimes when you go to shoot that Mega Missile into the wall in front of your face, it just doesn't spawn and it takes a little while to kill yourself. But anyway, so you warp back to the start because the run to that yellow key is really long and it saves a little bit of time to do so. And I'm on my way to red key. Red key unfortunately has a lot of narrow choke points with the melee enemies blocking, so I have to kind of do a little bit of manipulation to draw them out of their starting positions so that I can fire on them. This E-Bandit gives me a little bit of trouble. Not quite able to squeeze past him. But I eventually make it through and get to the red key, which is conveniently right over a lava pit, which makes it a lot easier to kill myself quickly. So at this point I'm done with all the key runs, so I'm ready to pick my gear back up, which is going to undo the bug with all the lack of attacks spawning. And I'm onto the boss fight. Now the boss fight is really dangerous. He can shoot Phoenix Cannon, like Smelter's been introduced back in level 2, but more importantly, he has Mega Missiles at his disposal, which saw me use one earlier on to kill myself after getting the yellow key. Mega Missiles have a huge blast radius and a huge damage, and also homing capabilities. So for this fight, I try and keep my distance because there is a maximum range that he will attack at, and as long as you remain outside that range, he won't shoot at all. Luckily, I got spawns that let me stay outside of this range. So this level has another use of the quad laser glitch. It's a little hard to find the angle sometimes to hit the switch, but I get it. The switch is a little bit kind of abnormally shaped. And this sequence break makes this the shortest level in the game, even shorter than the first level, which, as you recall, was a pretty quick one. So yeah, this is, now we're on to the second level of the world, Lime Frost Spiral, which is kind of an ice-themed world. Although, thankfully, given that, this game is free flight, we don't have any pesky ice physics to worry about. So, this, yeah, the second level is pretty straightforward. Not too much to worry about. As I mentioned before, Brim Spark is the lava world is a lot harder than this world in general because it's probably the most dangerous world in the run, so most of this world is going to look pretty straightforward by comparison, especially since this level features like a cloaking device or two to really make sneaking past most of the swarms of enemies a lot easier. A little bit of a trigger skip here as long as I pick up the red key and don't travel past it. That saves me the trouble of a potential trap with a Diamond Claw and a few other enemies. Also worth noting, I'm going to be doing the same thing I did back in the first boss level. There is a secret level portal that is actually located much closer to the reactor room than the main exit, so I'll be using that as an exit and save a couple seconds off my time. So rather than going straight forward towards the exit, I take the secret exit portal here, which thankfully a portal back out is right available at the start. So anyway, this is another death warping level, so I'm going to just duck into this little side niche here and drop all my gear off. Thankfully, this level is nowhere near as big as Magnet Core Station, and we will not be running into any problems with attacking. All shots will work as intended. Slight side trip here to grab an afterburner, just to keep the movement quick. And we're coming up on the blue key here. Just a couple enemies to clear out. Gonna grab this cloaking device as well to make my reverse trip a little bit less painful. And right here we're gonna see some use of the spread fire cannon. Enjoy it while it lasts because it's the only time in the run you're gonna see me using it. The spread fire cannon is essentially the Helix Cannon's little brother. It fires 3 shots in an alternating vertical and horizontal line. Takes a lot less energy than the Helix Cannon, does a lot less damage, but it's the best weapon I can have right now, so I'm going to be using it for a little while. Hopefully I get a cloaking device drop from this enemy right here, and thankfully I do, which makes this last segment for the red key a lot easier. And that's the end of the spread fire cannon, because that enemy drops me Gauss Cannon, which, as we know, is very strong. Don't think I mentioned this, but one of the extra bonus uses of the Gauss Cannon is that since it shoots very fast-moving projectiles, it's really good for opening doors that I'm approaching from a distance quickly and making sure that they are fully open by the time I reach them, so I'm not ramming into half-open doors and losing my momentum. So you've probably seen it a little bit up to this point, but you'll see me very frequently when I'm coming up on doors, if I'm not already on it, switching to the Gauss Cannon to open it efficiently. So yeah, commit suicide after the red key to warp back to the start. grab all my gear, which thankfully also all falls onto a hidden invulnerability power-up that's right there at the start of the stage, which makes this reactor run a lot easier. And with that, we're onto the boss level, Terra Catacombs, which is a pretty tricky level. There's a lot of high damaging enemies on the route that we look to just kind of avoid and hope, you know, don't take too much damage from them. We're also kind of depending on some cloak drop RNG. I got the first one, which is really common. You can usually depend on that one to drop. There's another potential one coming up here, which I do not get, so I would normally use that pick that up before the boss fight to make it a little easier, but there is one available in the boss arena as well. It's also worth noting that, kind of like some of the levels back in Corzon, this level has some kind of hidden intended sequence breaks, but it's a really difficult guided missile sequence that ultimately in itself takes a decent amount of time. I don't know, it gives you some nice items, nice pickups, but with the way the level's structured, skipping the blue key by using it is ultimately not really any notable time save. So just going to be doing the level pretty much normally here, collecting all 3 keys. And yeah, coming up on this, is going to be the red key, which is the most dangerous part of this level. Mainly because your shields are a little battered by this point, and the invulnerability by the red key will give you safety for the rest of the level in most cases, but it can be a little tricky to grab because you need to touch the red key, back out, and then go back into it again. With the invulnerability being behind a locked door that requires moving away from it to unlock it. Thankfully, though, I'm able to grab it, though, before I get gunned down by the surrounding enemies. So I have invulnerability now, and I'll be safe for pretty much the rest of the level. That said, better safe than sorry. This invulnerability is not going to carry me all the way through the rest of the level, so I will be grabbing a couple extra shield pickups on the way to the boss fight. Which, those shield pickups are coming up right here. And since I failed to get a cloak drop earlier, I'm going to be grabbing one right here. You'll note that I am using the gauze cannon here. That is because, like the previous boss, which I actually failed to mention, this boss is immune to energy weapons, so I do have to use gauze and missiles to take him down. The cloaking device is thankfully going to keep any of his weapons from locking onto me and make the fight a lot safer than it normally is. Without the cloaking device, that fight is extremely difficult. So this level is another level where the first key is held by a robot, one of those really fast-moving mine layers, and that makes this level kind of a pain in the butt. I use smart missiles there to try and take him out before he activates and runs away. I don't have any luck, but thankfully he pretty much crashes right into me as I go to chase him, which makes my life a lot easier. So yeah, most of the rest of this level is pretty straightforward. I will be doing a bit of a safety strat coming up, though, which needs some explanation. So the game has a mechanic, you can place down little blocks called markers that pretty much do what they say on the tin. They are not at all solid, you can fly straight through them, and they're mainly just used to mark locations of interest on your minimap. Now, while they aren't solid and you and enemies can fly through it unimpeded, they do, for some reason, block doors. The red door in this level locks from the inside, and you're forced to go through this kind of really obnoxious route right through a spawning point for additional enemies. And for safety, I'm just going to place a marker in that doorway to keep it from shutting so that I can go out the easier route. Lots of E-bandits here, pose a lot of potential threat, because if you have all your energy drained, then you're forced to use the gauze cannon, and the gauze cannon deals explosive damage, which is a good way to, using the gauze cannon against E-bandits that are right in your face is a good way to blow yourself up. But thankfully, I managed to keep enough energy for the rest of the level, and I get out of there just fine. So, most of this world, is this world known as Boris Prime, is kind of centered around having really complicated maze-like layouts. Obviously, that's not much of a problem when you're speedrunning and you already know where to go, so that's not really a concern for us, and this world is generally going to go pretty quickly. That said, there are some pretty dangerous points in this run. I have bad luck there. I don't get the cloaking device drop from that enemy there. It's about a 50-50 shot of finding it, and it makes this level a lot safer when you get it. But there's one right there as well, so it's not the end of the world. So yeah, just doing a few quick key runs and then heading for the reactor. The reactor room in this level is pretty obnoxious, though. There's a whole lot of cloaked enemies, very densely packed in there, which makes it really difficult to tell when you've properly cleared the room out. And I actually get blindsided here by a diamond claw, and then another one piles in after me, so unfortunately take a death here, which is very unexpected. I think that's the first time in probably like a year that I've died in that room. Well, while the room is obnoxious, it's usually not too dangerous. But the unexpected happens sometimes. I kill another cloaked enemy there and do get the cloak drop this time, so getting back to my gear is going to be considerably easier with that. My gear is confined in a pretty small boxy area, so it's easy to pick up quickly. I need to just find the switch here to give me access to the reactor room and finish the level up.
Self-destruct sequence activated.
So we're on the second to last level of Nephilim Scrub, which is even more maze-like than the other ones, but that also just makes it a considerably shorter level as well for a speedrun, because we're able to avoid all of the red herrings and looping pathways that tend to plague this level. And yeah, this level, as in general, does not have too many dangerous enemies, so it's generally not too scary. You can see a very small portion of this level because we're just heading straight for the keys. Plenty of extra shield drops in a lot of rooms as well, just to make it a little bit easier. Fortunately, I take some unexpected damage from an enemy waiting for me right outside that door, so I am going to have to take the reactor room a little bit more slowly than I usually do. I'm going to grab these extra shields for safety, though. Yeah, despite there not being any particularly strong enemies in the area, though, there are a lot of enemies in that reactor room, so it can be pretty dangerous if you're not careful. But anyway, we're on to the last level of Boris Prime, which is a little bit gimmicky in that it tries to entice you into killing the boss before you really know where the exit is. And as it turns out, the exit is very, very far away from the boss arena. But thankfully, inside the boss arena, there is a secret level portal. So once again, we'll just be using a secret level portal instead of the standard exit for this level. And that'll make our lives a lot easier. So this boss, conversely, compared against the previous two bosses, is immune to the Gauss Cannon, which there are no objections here about that, because that means I can use the Helix Cannon and do maximum DPS to him. Got a lucky cloaking device dropped earlier, which is going to make this a little bit safer. So grabbing the last key here and heading on to the boss fight. So the boss starts right in front of the door here, and thankfully I believe he does not teleport away. Bosses can teleport randomly. So yeah, just able to really quickly gun him down here. Just have to avoid the homing plasma stream and we're good to go. So, just gotta hit this switch, and that opens up the secret into the secret level portal. Just a quick fly through here, and then we are on to the last world in the game. Right off the bat, we're going to have one last guided missile sequence break. Incidentally, this is also the last time the Thiefbot can really screw us over, because the Thiefbot is in this cage, and he likes to just crash into your guided missiles like he did just there, preventing them from quite reaching the switch you're trying to hit. Second missile also getting blocked by the Thiefbot, but third time's the charm, and I hit the switch. That's going to let me skip the blue key and go straight to the red key in this level. Now, as the last world though, this level also introduces some really dangerous enemies, in particular something called Boris Heads. Boris Heads fire smart missiles, which are dumbfire missiles that explode into a bunch of homing plasma. If you take a direct hit from a smart missile, that's a ton of damage you're taking, and even if you evade them, you have to worry about the follow-up shrapnel. So, pretty dangerous enemy. This key is held by a keybot, as you saw earlier. Kind of lose track of him here. Thought he went into this room, but appears not. So I checked the map, and then as it turns out, he ran into a mine I laid earlier, and the key is just floating around back here. So back up for that. In a perfect world, you can just hit the keybot right off the bat, and you don't have to worry about chasing him down. But unfortunately, I go down in a really nasty room there, and collecting my gear with that many enemies around is going to take a long time, so I have to load a save here, losing about a minute here, which is pretty much the worst mistake that happens in this run, but things like that happen. So this time I'm going to take a little bit more cautious approach through this room and just clear it out a little more. Make sure that it's safe to travel back through there. This time I also managed to snipe out the red key bot without him flying away from me, so much smoother key pickup there. And I'm able to head back much more quickly than on my last run. So yeah, with the red key I'm able to head straight for the boss. Get a bit of an unintended damage boost though. There was one of those little white kind of pufferfish looking things. Those are kamikaze robots that explode on contact and do a pretty high amount of damage and have extraordinarily high knockback on them. They can be used for damage boosting, although it's really hard to manipulate them in ways where it's actually viable. Usually when you get damage boosts off them, it's entirely happy accidents, like it was right there. So, first reactor's down, just gotta shoot the switch out to reach the exit, and we are on to the second level. This level's pretty dangerous. The first room is really harsh, lots of Boris heads in really tight corridors where it's hard to avoid the smart missile fire. So I'm gonna try and take some out as I go by dropping some smart mines, but yellow doors are right here by the start of the level, so I'm just gonna drop my gear off there while I venture deeper into the level to grab the yellow key. I'm gonna grab these smart mines here and use them to kind of safely poke out this Boris head down here. And yeah, I'm taking lots of damage along the way, but it doesn't matter. I am, after all, going to Death Warp immediately after grabbing the yellow key, so no problems there. Even, you know, kind of damage myself a lot with the splash from the missiles as I take down that blue guard. No more enemies to the yellow key though, so just pick up the key and throw a missile in the wall. So now I'm right back at the start, right near all my gear and right near where the red key is. And with that, I'm ready to move on to the reactor. Going to grab a cloaking device that's just a little bit out of my way though. It makes this tight little cycle that I'm going to try and make in the reactor room a lot easier if I have that cloaking device. Reactor room's door locks on the inside, so what I'm going to try and do here is get in, destroy the reactor, and get out just before the door closes. I do half of that correctly. I get out just before the door closes, but I was also one shot short of killing the reactor, so I just have to reopen the door and go back in there again. But that does mean I still avoid doing a little bit of a convoluted sequence in that room to switches and triggers to unlock the door again. So I still saved some time there versus doing that. So we're on to the second to last level of the game. This level's a little bit gimmicky in that it has no sources of energy, no energy centers or anything, nothing. So I'm going to be using gauze cannon and secondary weapons pretty much the whole way through this, so that I can save all of my energy for afterburning and for helixing down the reactor. Thankfully this level, though, is pretty small and pretty densely packed, so it is one of the shorter ones in the game. Taking this scrap to get a little bit of extra shield, but the level's pretty much done at this point. Most of the dangerous points are past, and this Boris head right here is guaranteed to drop an invulnerability, which will make the rest of my life for this level a lot easier. Kind of got a bit of a puzzle sequence here where I have to activate a lot of triggers to open doors. But now I'm at the reactor, and it's just a matter of phase tanking it and helixing it down, the invulnerability power up. But as you can see, despite only using my energy for afterburning and for killing the reactor, I'm very low. I'm at 10 energy as I exit and head on to the last level of the game. Now, the cutscene right before the last level tries to make it seem like this level's a giant planetoid, but this is actually one of the smaller and quicker levels in the game. Thankfully, most of the keys are all concentrated in one point at the top of the sphere. So I grab the blue key right there, and the yellow key shortly after. And also there's a guaranteed invulnerability drop from the Lugard right at the start, so I'm vulnerable from most of the key grabbing. And there's also an invulnerability in the boss arena, so most of this level's pretty much free. There is a brief moment here where I won't be invulnerable, and I do have to be careful because I can take a lot of damage very quickly here. But as long as I can get to the invulnerability power-up before the boss fires his Earthshaker missiles right there, I'm just fine. So this boss is special compared to all the other ones in that he has a specific spot that leads to each shot. More generally, you just need to shoot him in the butt. So gotta keep flying around, trying to get behind him, and just unload all your weapons into him. He goes down, and that is it. So, yeah, that is it. The ending sequence plays out here. And then right here, if you get the high score, which I will definitely be getting the high score, because I'll be resetting the internal leaderboards before the run, you can type in a cool saying. This could potentially be a cute little donation incentive. It doesn't really have any impact. It's just a post-run thing. I believe it's, if I'm recalling correctly, I wanted to say I counted and it's 45 characters, alphanumeric, and punctuation allowed. Let's see, 6, 10, 14, 15, 22. And then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 45 characters. Could potentially be a donation incentive, but it doesn't really add much. But, you know, the option's on the table. But that is going to be it. This has been my AGDQ 2017 Descent 2 video submission. Thank you for watching.